Ever since the start of 2020, our lives are forever changed by the most crucial global health calamity of the century, the coronavirus pandemic. Almost like an eerie scene from an apocalyptic movie, we saw the world come to a quiet standstill, with schools closing and employees asked to work from home, travel suspended, and almost every industry operationally closed. Large spaces that were once filled with bustling crowds now reverberating the echo of a life we once knew. Planes remained parked in airports and borders across the globe closed to contain the spread of the virus. The world healed as mass commuting came to a grinding halt, allowing us to realize the dehumanizing drain on energy and resources. As we found out more about how coronavirus spreads through air, we learned to keep a social distance. In fact, to this day, stickers almost everywhere in public act as markers for how far apart we need to be from others. Wearing masks everywhere became the new norm, whilst coughing in public became the most feared and distasteful thing you could do, earning you a sideways glance from those around you. Filled with uncertainty of what was yet to come, we saw more ominous scenes with a rush of frantic panic buyers stockpiling at supermarkets. The virus has been and still is a test like no other. Never before have the lives of so many people around the world been impacted at this scale or speed. The virus has already claimed over 2.5 million lives and infected over 100 million people worldwide. The word pandemic literally means affecting everyone, and that's exactly what it's done. I've decided to embark on a journey to learn more about the COVID vaccine before my time comes to take it. At the time of filming this documentary, opinion about the vaccine seems to be divided. I wanted to listen to the concerns that some people have about the vaccine, particularly those from an ethnic minority background, whilst also speaking to medical professionals to find out what their opinions were on the vaccine. Thousands who have recovered from their infections are living with symptoms that don't seem to be going away. The devastation brought about by this deadly virus has not only had a major health impact on so many people, but we have seen how it has affected our lives in every single way. Many people have lost their jobs or seen their incomes cut, causing a surge in unemployment rates and pushing more people into poverty. This has meant for millions of people around the globe, this crisis will not be short-lived. Whilst pre-pandemic life seemed like a distant memory, and amidst all the uncertainty of the virus still lingering, a glimmer of hope appeared as talks of a COVID vaccine emerged. The UK became the first country to approve the Pfizer vaccine. Shortly after, on the 8th of December 2020, May Parsons, a matron at the University Hospital of Coventry, became the first person in the world to administer a COVID-19 vaccine to a patient outside of clinical trials. She did it in the early morning, as cameras flashed and the world watched on. In January, after talks began to take place about the rollout of the new corona vaccine, we carried out a poll of Black and minority ethnic Britons of about 1,000, as they tend to be underrepresented in data. We found out that vaccine hesitancy was much higher among minority communities. While 77% of the white British population said they probably or definitely will get the vaccine, we found that among BAME Britons, just 65% said they probably or definitely would, and around a quarter said they wouldn't. This was even reflective of the circle of people I know, who had different opinions. Some were excited to be getting their life back on track, whilst I found that others, and particularly those of my parents' age group, to be more wary of the vaccine, having heard many rumours circulating, particularly conspiracy videos through WhatsApp. It's become apparent that some communities are more wary of the vaccine than others, and this is generally due to misinformation. Some of the rumours that I've heard are about how these vaccines are able to tag us, that they contain nanochips or even nanoparticles, and sometimes this is even linked to the conspiracy of 5G. There is already an unprecedented amount of scrutiny and intrusion into our private lives, with our phones, CCTV, GPS and other technological advancements. Many who believe in the conspiracies link that to the vaccination being a way for governments to increase the intrusion on our privacy. The online space is spammed with information overload by those who are neither experts in the field nor have tried to verify the source of information received. I wanted to speak to my father about some of the concerns around the vaccine and to find out what his thoughts and worries were, as well as to hear about some of the rumours he has heard being spread. So I've come to speak to you today because I know that you've heard quite a lot about the COVID vaccine from your friends, from WhatsApp groups, etc. But I really wanted to know, what are the rumours that you've heard with regards to the vaccine?
والله في الحقيقة هنالك رأيين مختلفين بين العلماء والمتخصصين في هذا المجال، رأي مع التطعيم ورأي ضد التطعيم. الرأي الذي مع التطعيم يقول هذا اللقاح يهيئ الجسم ويجعل جهاز المناعة ينتج أجسام مضادة وخلايا ذاكرة في حالة أو على أساس إذا دخل الفيروس ينقض عليها. وأخذ الفيروس في الحقيقة يكون أفضل بكثير من عدم أخذ الفيروس. أخذ الفيروس في حالة أخذ الفيروس والإصابة بالمرض أو الفيروس يكون أقل بكثير، يكون أقل بنسبة 5 إلى 10% من الذين لا يأخذون الفيروس. والإيجابية اللي بأخذ الفيروس هي أكو حقيقة يعني جانبين. جانب هو أن يقضي على المرض في الحالات الحرجة والصعبة، وحقيقة يخفف من الوفيات على المستوى العالمي، وهذا مما يشعر الإنسان بالراحة والطمأنينة لأن ما يشعر بخوف. وسبب المرض حقيقة هو يعتمد على الإنسان عندما يخاف. هذا الرأي الأول. الرأي الثاني هو حقيقة يذهب إلى نظرية المؤامرة. يعتبر هذا اللقاح يريد يسيطر على الإنسان أو يسيطر على البشر وتحركاته ويتحكم به ويربطوه ب5G. وهنالك من يذهب أبعد من ذلك، يذهب إلى مشروع إينوخ بقضية المليار الذهبي، بأن يردون يقضون على 3/4 العالم من أجل البقاء على المليار الذهبي، من أجل الكرة الأرضية ما تحمل، عرفت شلون، هاي الكمية من البشر. وهنالك رأي أبعد بكثير من هذا، هو رأي حقيقة ديفيد آيك اللي هو منظر وكاتب معروف يعني في بريطانيا في جامعة ليستر. ديفيد يذهب إلى نظرية المؤامرة في كتابه السر الأكبر. يقول هذه الفيروسات أساسها هو النظام العالمي الجديد، حقيقة يريد يتحكم بالبشر ويريد يسوي يعني نظام عالمي جديد بدولة واحدة، عملة واحدة، جيش واحد، دين واحد، بهالشكل. وأكو من يستدل طبعا على هذا الكلام بقضية أحجار جورجيا الغامضة التي نصبت سنة 1980، نصبت في أمريكا في مدينة جورجيا. أهل المدينة استيقظوا صباحا رأوا هذه الأحجار مكتوبة ب8 لغات وبشكل هندسي رائع جدا، تدخل منها أشعة الشمس، ومكتوب بها يجب إعادة الحضارات القديمة والقضاء على 3/4 البشرية، إبقاء على 500 مليون نسمة من أجل حياة أفضل وحياة أجمل إلى آخره. فهذه النظريات حقيقة نسميها نظرية المؤامرة التي يتحدثون بها. وأكو من يذهب أكثر بكثير من ذلك في قضية النظام العالمي الجديد، بقضية بلوم بيم، الشعاع الأزرق الذي يريدون أن يتحكمون به بالبشر من خلال 4 مراحل إلى آخره. المرحلة الأولى هو القضاء على البعد الإنساني، المرحلة الثانية هي العرض الفضائي، المرحلة الثالثة هو حقيقة القضية السيطرة العقلية من خلال الموجات المكرومغناطيسية. والنقطة الرابعة الذين يقولون بها ليس العرض الفضائي، هو الغزو الفضائي. هاي النقاط اللي متداولة عليها ويتحدثون بها الجميع حقيقة. هذا اللي موجود في الشارع.
Okay. And then, like, based on the rumors that you've heard, has it made you want to take the vaccine or not, and why?
في الحقيقة بالنسبة لي أنا شخصيا أنا مع العلم، أميل مع العلم، يعني أخذ الفاكسين، لكن عندي ملاحظات حقيقة. ملاحظاتي يعني أكو كثيرين من الأطباء والعلماء، يعني تقريبا فوق 1000 من أطباء العالم سووا مؤتمر على الزوم وتحدثوا بهذا المجال، تحدثوا وملاحظاتهم هم قيمة حقيقة. قالوا للأسف الشديد اللقاح تم تصنيعه بشكل سريع جدا وبدون يعني حقيقة تكون هنالك نفرض تجارب على البشر بشكل كبير. فأنا ايش أقول حقيقة يعني احنا ناخذ اللقاح وننتظر يعني فترة زمنية أكثر من 6 أشهر أو سنة حتى نشوف النتائج يعني حقيقة ما هذا اللقاح. فأنا أميل إلى اللقاح، أن نأخذ اللقاح.
The vaccine is calling upon the older generation, so whether in doubt or not, those who are vulnerable and have health risks are needing to take it. My concern, however, is for the safety of young British Muslims. Although conspiracy theories and misinformation have been the driving force behind the hesitancy to take the vaccine, our findings show that it is not necessarily the case in itself. When we asked Muslims who are hesitant or opposed to the vaccine why they felt this way, they were much more likely to focus on safety, hearing talks about the vaccine being poisoned or being malicious with intent to harm. We also had reasons like being scared of needles, or another was about having a bad experience within the health system, which is much higher among BAME respondents with links to structural racism. There has also been a lot of talk about Muslims opposed to getting the vaccine because they had been told it contained ingredients that were not halal. Zahra Mirali, a young British Muslim woman, is not keen on the vaccine, so I'm speaking to her today to find out where her worries lie.
There are, again, a lot of concerns with this particular vaccination. So for me, I'm thinking about how quickly it came about. So as we know, with anything like medicines or vaccines, it takes over 3, 4, 5 years to actually be approved and for it to go on the market and for it to be injected into people. And so for me, this vaccine has come about fairly quickly. And I know given the situation, it's understandable, but that would sort of make me very uneasy. And that's one of my concerns as to what actually is within the vaccine in itself. Now, I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories, again, that this vaccine is just a solution of salt and water to make people believe that they're getting the vaccine. Some people have said that there are chips that are integrated within this vaccine. I don't think so. I believe that there may be elements that are there that we haven't been told that are in the vaccine, but that was one of my concerns. Like, how has it come about so quickly? And that makes me think, then if the virus was planned, then I'm sure the vaccine would have been ready there in order for it to be spread out to the people when situation gets really, really tough, like the situation we're in right now. That's one of the concerns. The second concern that I do have is the side effects. Now, there have been a lot of people that have said they haven't gotten any side effects, but there have been a lot of people that have said they have gotten COVID-like symptoms, which sort of makes me think as to whether the vaccine has an element of the COVID virus in it for our immune system to then be able to deal with the actual true COVID that's around and about. And I've also read a lot of the Pfizer vaccine having a very detrimental impact on people in America, where there have been 32 cases of people unfortunately passing away. So all of this is very concerning to me. I'm sure it's concerning to a lot of people, but at the same time, we have to look at the pros as opposed to the negatives. And again, if we take this vaccine, it's very important for all of us, for our health. And for those followers of Sayyid Sistani, he has said to take the vaccine to protect ourselves as well as other people.
Some people have taken the burden of responsibility to inform and educate the public on the importance of the vaccine. One of the first people I know to take the COVID vaccine was my sister Milad, who is an NHS doctor and also someone considered high risk.
So the reason I'm meeting with you today is because you were one of the first people that I know who got the vaccine again when it first came out. And I remember you uploaded a video on social media which got a lot of backlash. So I wanted to kind of find out a little bit about why that happened and what sort of reactions you got from people.
So firstly, the video that I uploaded was specifically about the Pfizer vaccine, because that was the first vaccine that was released in the UK, and I wanted to debunk one of the common myths and just talk a bit about how it works. I'd say about 80 to 90% of the feedback which I got or the comments were
negative?
Quite negative. Yeah, absolutely.
Would you say that the majority of the people who were leaving negative feedback were people from an ethnic minority or from a BAME background?
No, I'd say they were from a diverse background. It's difficult to know who's behind the screen, but from what I could see, it was people from different age groups, and yeah.
What were some of the negative comments that you got? Like, give me an example of something that you got that you felt was quite harsh.
Yeah, so I kind of got comments from both Muslims and non-Muslims. For example, from the non-Muslims, it attacked my physical appearance. So, you know, she's wearing a bandage around her head. How would she know? Has she even had any education? And I got also general comments about working for the being paid, to actually promote the vaccine,
okay.
Being a sellout. And from the Muslims, a common theme that ran was that actually, you know, she sold herself to the devil. She's pretending to be a Muslim. They've actually put someone in hijab to come on and actually promote the vaccine to try and get us Muslims to try and take it. So yeah.
So I had a few questions with regards to the vaccine itself. After having done some research and seen all sorts of things being circulated on social media and WhatsApp, etc., some of the things I've come across are, for example, that you can have a really bad reaction to the vaccine whereby you get, I think, Bell's palsy. Is that true?
That's not true. There's been no evidence to prove that the vaccine directly, any of the vaccines, causes Bell's palsy. Now, we know in the UK or worldwide that a rough prevalence of having Bell's palsy is about 25 in every 100,000 people. So in the general population, whether you've had the vaccine or not. So, there could be incidental cases whereby someone was involved in the trials and happened to have Bell's palsy, but had they not had the vaccine, they would have been also at risk of getting it regardless. So yeah.
Okay. And what about people who have had Botox and fillers? I've heard that you can have a bad reaction to the vaccine if you are somebody who's had Botox and fillers.
So there were 3 people who had the Moderna vaccine. So the Moderna vaccine, there were 30,000 people involved in that particular trial for that vaccine. 3 people who had fillers developed swelling, a very small amount of swelling, which was treated with steroids and antihistamines, nothing that led to any long-term adverse effects from what we know. And we do not think that it is a risk for people who've had fillers, from what we do know from the evidence that we do have. The theory is with fillers is that people who have fillers have hyaluronic acid injected into them, and that tends to draw in fluids. Okay. So if you were given a vaccine or had any form of inflammation, it's more likely to show up. Okay. And actually there are some cases who people have had the flu vaccine, it's been reported, and they've had
bad reactions.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it wouldn't stop someone from having the vaccine.
What about people who have allergies? So I've heard if you have like a nut allergy, for example, or some sort of allergy, then you could also react quite badly to the vaccine.
So the guidelines are quite clear with at the current stage, as of today, that the only people who cannot have the Pfizer vaccine are people who have had an allergic reaction to any of the ingredients found within the vaccine. So if you've got a nut allergy, that alone would not stop you from having the Pfizer vaccine. As for the other vaccines, whether it's the Moderna or AstraZeneca, we are yet to hear of any cases where they've had any anaphylaxis kind of serious reactions.
Okay, and what about the is it RNA that's within the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines that people seem to be wary of? Like, why are people like quite scared, and what is it specifically about that vaccine that people are quite cautious from? And there are rumours circulating that it can alter your DNA. Is there any truth to that at all?
Okay. So the RNA vaccines are new types of vaccines actually. So the Pfizer, Moderna are the first RNA vaccines that have actually been launched and being used in patients. And they are absolutely safe to use. It's a technology which has been developed over years, so it's not just come out of the blue. And we have a lot of research into it. There's absolutely no way in which an RNA vaccine can change your DNA. Simply put, because this type of vaccine cannot enter the part of the cell called the nucleus where your DNA is, so it cannot alter it.
So it can't change your DNA?
It cannot change your DNA,
Okay.
absolutely no chance.
So amongst my friends, we've had a lot of discussions with regards to the effectiveness of one vaccine to another. And I've heard different stuff, for example, like Oxford being a traditional method, therefore, it's safer, or Pfizer being more expensive because of, the way that it was produced, for example, therefore it's more effective. And really what it comes down to is it true that one virus is more effective than another? And if I was to take Pfizer, for example, as opposed to Oxford, then I'm going to be safer or not? Or is there no truth to that?
So at the moment, at this present time, there's no way of comparing any of the vaccines with each other, and the simple reason being is because the only way in which you can tell whether one vaccine is better than the other is by directly putting them up against each other, and there was no trial to compare any of the two vaccines against each other. We will only know which one is more effective in the coming months or even year, or if not longer, once we see a larger population being vaccinated, and then we can kind of see the outcomes from it. But as of today, there is absolutely no way of saying which one is better. And they're all safe and equally as at present good.
So another point that's come up in discussions is for the younger generation, they have a lot longer to live. And because we still don't know the effects of the vaccine on our bodies, what will happen down the line in the future if these vaccines did have some sort of adverse effect on us?
So with vaccines generally, we know what goes inside them. And for a vaccine to be approved, it has to go through a regulatory body, and there is so much that's looked into to make sure that a vaccine is safe. As with any medication or treatment, no one can ever be 100%, but based on the evidence that we have and on all the previous vaccines that we have had, these vaccines are safe, and there was no way they would be rolled out if we had any concerns about their safety.
So finally, it brings me on to the point of the vaccine itself, and you had the vaccine, as we said earlier. So what was it like for you, and what would you say to the young generation who might want to avoid taking the vaccine because they feel like, it's not going to make a difference to their lives, for example, because they're safe or from COVID, or they're immune to it?
So I had the Pfizer vaccine. I had absolutely no side effects from it. Not to say that you can't have side effects, common ones being a mild fever, feeling a bit achy and tired afterwards. But for me personally, I had absolutely no side effects. So it was great, a great experience. As for the younger population, I think, you've mentioned a really important point, and what I want to emphasise is that we have had younger people who have been severely affected by COVID, so that's the first point to make. The second point is that when you have a vaccine, it's not just about protecting yourself, but also about protecting your loved ones, your family, your friends, because we need to get the whole population protected so we can stop this virus from going around and affecting people's lives. So it's really important that everyone out there does take the vaccine, whichever one is offered. Please, do get vaccinated.
In January 2021, Birmingham Mosque became the UK's first to offer the COVID vaccine. We sent our crew to film the Imam, Sheikh Nurul Muhammad.
We've opened our mosque in response to the calling of Almighty God, whom we worship, that you cannot claim to worship me without sharing the plight and the pains of others. And indeed, we are all together in this. We are all in pain. We've seen how many people from our community suffered and continue to suffer. Some even lost their lives. So this is our contribution, which we call a humble one for that matter, in the fight against the spread of COVID. And we are proud and excited about this. The response has been amazing, unbelievable, unexpected, to tell you the truth from the bottom of my heart, because I'm on the ground. I know I do interact with so many people, be it Muslims or not Muslims, It has brought us together. I received so many calls, from Muslims, from non-Muslims who came here, and even those who have not come here to say, this is the way forward. You are bridging the gap, and we need it badly. It is not only within the confinement of our mosque in the sense that only members of our community are coming to benefit. No. Non-Muslims, people from different walks of life are coming to benefit. And that is our aim, to ensure that we touch people's heart, irrespective of their background. My humble response to those who are spreading fake news, if I may allow to call it fake news, is that we need to try as much as we can to rely on those medical experts we've been relying on for many years in our lives, either with headache, with stomach pain, with whatever issues. Our GPs, our scientists are those we've been relying on. So here is the case where the world is faced with this pandemic. Who do we rely on? The one who has been tried and tested, or the one who has not been tried and tested? We have to rely on the one who has been tried and tested, and logic calls for that. And our beloved Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, remind us of the importance of health. And I personally don't see any other way out than to have the jab in your arm or on your arm. That's the only way. So let's come together and fight this fake news. Let's combat it and ensure that people receive the best information and the best message. And I believe if we all play our part, we should be able to go back to some sort of normality.
To get a better understanding of the vaccine process, I met with a patient care coordinator who has chosen to stay anonymous as the information she is sharing is still somewhat sensitive.
Can you explain to me what it is that you do in your line of work? And from your experience, would you say that people have been keen to take the vaccine at the moment or not? What's the reaction been like?
I work as a patient care coordinator for a borough in London, and my responsibility has been to call up patients who are eligible for the COVID vaccine and book them in for an appointment. I have found that 98% of patients have agreed to take the vaccine, but only a few have actually declined or have actually told me they're not interested. Some patients have come back and booked it later on, or some patients have not even bothered with the vaccine because they just don't want it anymore. In general, I can see that everyone wants an easy way out from this coronavirus pandemic, and the patients are opting for the vaccine just to feel normal again.
What is the current system like, and how would you categorize patients?
There are over 7 categories for the COVID vaccine. At the moment, we are doing the over 70s and slowly starting with the clinically vulnerable, and have done 75% of the over 80s. Patients are coming in as early as 8 a.m. to take a COVID vaccine, and every 10 minutes a COVID vaccine is given to a patient until it's 8 p.m. and doors close. The COVID vaccination centre has been running nearly every day, including weekends, to make sure that everyone gets vaccinated as soon as possible. We have still a long way to go before we finish the whole population. We have a target to reach, and hopefully we will meet the target as soon as possible.
From the patients who have had the vaccine so far, have you come across any who've had bad side effects or any side effects at all? And if so, what have they been?
The COVID vaccines that were given so far showed hardly any reactions. Most patients who have taken the vaccines have shown little to none symptoms. The smallest or the least symptoms that you would have seen is a little temperature or a sore arm. Some patients did suffer from a headache or temperature or shivering for a few hours or a day or so. Other than that, everyone has been fine. There have hardly been any reactions.
Dr. Mohammed Abbas Kaki has been on the front line battling with COVID. He also contracted the virus himself, but has now been vaccinated. I've come to see him today to get his views on the vaccine.
There's 2 points to the vaccine. You will get a side effect from most vaccines. And that's just normal. What that means is your body might have a temperature, or you might have an ache in your arm, or you might feel a bit run down for a few days. The reason that happens is when you have the vaccination, your body's saying, right, I need to fight this thing. I need to prepare. And that's when we're priming and preparing the immune system. So that's part of that is feeling a bit unwell for a few days, feeling a bit of an ache, feeling a bit unwell, a bit tired. And after a few days, that settles. That's just normal after the vaccination. What a lot of people are worried about is the myths and the rumors that have gone about this vaccination. You know, why has it happened so quickly? Why does everyone want me to have it so badly? You know, is there some sort of control mechanism? Is there a chip in there that can control me? Is this going to cause me to emit 5G waves or something crazy? So, and that's all come because we live now in a society where we're all locked down, we're all on our phones, And all we have is social media. And if people are able to use their social media to pass on myths and rumours that are not true, we see this much more quickly and we share this on. Particularly within minority communities, there seems to be an interested, targeted part of social media aiming at that community to spread even more myths. It doesn't make sense for a vaccination to have a chip in it or something, because it's not possible. What happened was, the rumour came about because there was, on the bottles where the vaccines are, they need to keep aware of it. So there's electronic tagging. So just as normal, with all things, we have some form of tagging. You go to a supermarket, you have a barcode scanner.
Yeah.
Same concept, but people took it and made it something else.
Yeah.
With the vaccination, for example, and why it's happened so quickly, this is really a feat of science, an incredible achievement for us. The way that all the labs have come together and said, we're going to work together. We're going to support one another to get this vaccination. And in the past, you might have had to get through lots of barriers and hurdles to get your program approved. You have to submit paperwork, hundreds of pages long, goes to a committee, comes back. This time we knew. We don't need to justify why you need a vaccine. COVID-19 has happened. We need to get this going. The best way to look at the vaccination is, first of all, whatever the vaccination that's been offered in your region is fine, because all of the ones that we have, they work well, something we call efficacy. They work well, they demonstrate that they're going to protect you, and they're all in the 85 to 90% level, which is very high. And I think sometimes people say, well, I want this one, and I want that one. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, you know, and there's no real justification. It's just because it sounds good. You know, I want the Oxford because it's from the
It's traditional.
Yeah, it's from the UK.
Yeah.
You know, why does that change anything? You know, so there are some reasons that people give which don't quite make sense. And I always think, look, the most important thing is not the type of vaccination you get, the make. It's actually to get the vaccination and get that schedule done, because we know, and having seen it working with patients, the devastation that COVID-19 can cause.
Yeah, and I wanted to actually talk to you about that, because you're someone who I know has been dealing with corona patients from the very start of the pandemic. What's that been like?
On a holistic level, it was a complete blessing. But there's been a lot of challenges. There's the element of having to go to work and know that you're seeing patients who have a life-threatening condition that you could easily pick up any day. That risk is huge, and it is something that you have to take into your work every day. Then you have the emotional toll. Unbelievably challenging consultations, because you've got patients who are really worried for their own health, families who are worried. You've got to separate the families because of the rules of social distancing and protecting them. And you have people who don't speak English, you have people who are old, end-of-life conditions, or who are about to give birth, and you have to do all these really hard, emotional, challenging consultations, and that has been really difficult, you know, these assessments. There's the physical element, which is wearing really tough PPE, breathing in these heavy masks, heavy outfits, aprons for 10, 12 hours at a stretch. There's the mental challenge, which is trying to stay up to date with all the new changes. Every day we have a meeting in the morning for an hour, half an hour, for discussing all the new changes, how to assess a patient, where the services, who to send to, how to examine, what antibiotics to give, what's the new guidelines. So much stress of having to do all of that.
But I want you to take me back to the patients that you've been seeing. Death toll especially has been going up for a while now. But from your perspective, why do people need to take this vaccine?
We've just got to the point where the UK's death toll is 100,000 people, 0.1 million people. And many of those people are just like all of us. They just thought, I'll be fine, nothing will happen. Just a few days ago, very recently, someone who I worked with from the whole first wave, second wave, a doctor, a really good friend of mine, we got through it all together. He just passed away.
Oh my God.
51. It was heartbreaking. And he just had one other health condition, but he was just like us, fit and well, wearing his PPE. And so some of the elements of it really frighten you, because you think, shoot, that could be me. But part of it, you suddenly realise this could be anybody. And that's why the vaccine's so important. The vaccine is so important because of two things, in my opinion. One, preventing you from getting coronavirus.
Yep.
This is really important because we just don't know what will happen. You could lose your life because of coronavirus, and the impact is huge. And if 100,000 people is not a statistic that is just to be put away, it's to say, well, that's 100,000 families. That's 100,000 people who've lost their father or their mother or the sister or the main person supporting them. That's devastating. The other part is, and this is in many ways the thing that I say the most when people say to me, should I have the vaccine? And this is the bit I think is really important. If you get COVID-19 and you get better and you don't, you're not need to be in hospital, all that stuff, the problem is that 1 in 5 people from current research get something called long COVID.
Yeah,
long COVID is a condition where you can have months. At the moment, we don't even know how long. Some people are going up to sort of 8-10 months so far, which is as long as the disease has been around, with breathlessness, ongoing exhaustion, unable to do things, tiredness, poor concentration,
they keep
brain
testing positive,
fog.
they can't go back to work.
They can't go back to work, they can't work from home, they just can't do anything. And the problem is, it's 1 in 5, and nobody knows who's going to have that 1 in 5.
I was going to say, a lot of people are now probably wondering, with this vaccine, does it cover the new cases of COVID that we're seeing in the UK and, other parts of the world?
So we're hoping that the vaccination will provide some protection for the different strains, because we know that at least a strain is not a complete difference from the original. So we're hoping that having that, your body will still react, still fight off, and hopefully with that support and your natural immunity, your body's natural immune defences, will be able to protect you. But of course, lots of research is going on, and it may be like the flu vaccine, where every year we have a COVID-19 vaccination, and it's just updated for the latest strain. But only time will tell at this stage.
Well, I'm glad I've had this conversation with you, because I personally feel a bit more reassured. As you're saying, if all these vaccines are there to protect us, and enable us to go back into society and live our lives again. Anyway, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
My pleasure, thanks so much.
The pandemic has been a seismic event, even for people who've managed not to catch the virus. While the first round of vaccinations has begun worldwide, widespread availability, distribution and administration are the next big steps towards a new normal and economic recovery. After weighing the opinions I have heard, I was convinced that taking the vaccine is the best way to ensure I can get back to my old life.
I've actually come here today to get my COVID vaccine. I've been called to get the AstraZeneca. I'm a bit nervous, so wish me luck. I've just come out from my vaccine. The whole process was really short. I think it took between 10 to 15 minutes. I feel fine, but we'll wait and see what happens later, I guess. And I've been given all this information, which I'm going to go home and read now.
So it's been about 12 hours since I've had the injection, and I'm starting to feel really cold and achy all over, and I think I've got a fever, but we'll see how I feel in the morning. If every single person in this world is vaccinated and no longer under threat of getting the virus, surely we can resume the life we once knew. The choices and feelings of individuals who are wary of the vaccine are respected. However, it is more important than ever to stop the spread of disinformation and conspiracy theories. A belief in these conspiracy theories can risk someone's life. In addition to saving one's own life, Islam emphasizes the need to save others' lives. Anyone who saves a single life, it's as though he has saved the whole of humanity, is what the Quran says. Our focus should be on protecting and saving lives rather than dividing opinion amongst ourselves.
The world has suffered lockdown burnout, and people are more eager than ever to get their lives back on track. And what this vaccine has to offer is a sense of normality.
But a return to life as usual will not mask the emotional toll COVID will have had on so many people. the intense financial hardship many have had to endure, and the mental health impacts on those who suffer from anxiety and depression. Women in abusive relationships, children experiencing abuse or neglect at the hands of their parents, they have all had it the worst, and their experiences of isolation and loneliness during lockdown could have consequences for their personal relationships that will not magically disappear with a vaccine. Whilst we deliberate on whether we should take the vaccine or not, the West is fortunate enough to be able to roll out the vaccine in bulk. It is the poorer countries which will have to suffer, not knowing if and when it will be made available to them, as they will inevitably be pushed to the back of the queue, sparking talks of social inequality. As a society, recovering from COVID is about much more than antibodies. It is about supporting one another, healing the world with a renewed outlook and appreciation for life.